Something has shifted in the invisible space between you and someone who matters. And if you're here right now, if you clicked on this video, if something pulled you to this exact moment, you already feel it. You might not be able to name it yet, but you feel it. There's someone in your life, or someone who was in your life, who used to look past you. Someone who couldn't see what was right in front of them. Someone who chose differently, walked away, or just wasn't there in the way you needed them to be. Someone who made you feel invisible even when you were standing right there, offering everything you had. And for the longest time, maybe months, maybe years, you wondered what was wrong with you. You searched yourself for deficiencies. You catalogued your flaws. You replayed conversations, trying to figure out what you said wrong, what you did wrong, what you failed to be. Why weren't you enough? Why couldn't they see what you were offering? Why did it feel like you were speaking a language they couldn't understand, like you were reaching for them through glass they didn't even know was there? But here's what I need you to know, and I need you to really hear this. They weren't looking past you because you weren't enough. They were looking past you because they weren't ready to see. Their eyes weren't opened yet. Their heart wasn't developed yet. Their soul wasn't mature enough yet to recognize what real love looks like, what genuine connection feels like, what it means when someone shows up for you with their whole heart. And now, everything is different. Right now, in this very season you're in, there is someone who is experiencing one of the most profound awakenings of their entire life. They are waking up to a truth that has always been there, humming beneath the surface of their awareness, but that they couldn't access before. They are seeing you, truly seeing you, maybe for the first time ever. Or maybe they're seeing you clearly, after years of looking at you through fog. And it's not that you changed. It's not that you became more worthy or more valuable or more deserving of their attention. You were always all of those things. You were always exactly what they needed. You were always the answer to questions they didn't even know they were asking. What changed is them. They went through something. Life humbled them in a way they needed to be humbled. Experience taught them lessons that words never could have taught. Reality showed them what really matters and what was just distraction. And in the process of their own journey, their own falling apart and coming back together, their own mistakes and consequences and late-night reckonings with themselves, they developed eyes that can finally see. They developed a heart that can finally feel. They developed a soul that can finally recognize. If you've been feeling like something is coming full circle, if you've been sensing this person's energy differently lately, if things that felt definitively closed suddenly feel tentatively open again, if their name keeps appearing in your awareness in ways that feel like more than coincidence, you're not imagining it. You're not making it up. You're not projecting your hopes onto empty space. Stay with me. What I'm about to walk you through over the next 50 minutes is going to make sense of everything you've been feeling. And by the end of this, you're going to understand not just what's happening with this person, but what it means for you, why it's happening now, and how to navigate this with wisdom and grace and complete clarity about your own worth. Before we dive deeper into this journey together, I want to say thank you to everyone who has supported this channel through Super Thanks. Your generosity makes it possible for me to keep creating these messages, to spend hours crafting content that speaks to the specific experiences you're walking through. I'm so grateful for each of you. If today's message speaks to your soul, if you feel seen and understood here, that's a beautiful way to say thank you and help this ministry continue. Let's begin. So let's start with the fundamental question. What does readiness actually look like? Because this isn't about someone suddenly deciding you're good enough. This isn't about you finally measuring up to some standard you were falling short of before. This is about someone finally becoming capable of recognizing what was always valuable. There's a profound difference there. Think about it this way, and really let this metaphor sink in. You can place a diamond in front of someone who doesn't know what a diamond is, and they'll walk right past it. They'll reach for something shiny but cheap instead. They'll pick up glass and think it's precious. They'll hold costume jewelry and believe it's rare. Not because the diamond isn't valuable, it absolutely is. Its worth is inherent and unchanging, but because they haven't yet learned to recognize real value when they see it. That's what was happening before. Not rejection, not you being overlooked because you weren't enough, not you being passed over because someone better came along. It was someone operating with a completely different set of eyes. Eyes that hadn't yet been trained by life to see what matters. Eyes that were still attracted to flash instead of substance, to easy instead of real, to temporary highs instead of lasting connection. And you know what the beautiful, painful, complicated truth is? There was nothing you could have done to speed up their learning process. No amount of explaining who you were, no amount of showing them what you were offering, no performance or proof or convincing or perfect behavior. You couldn't have been more patient, more understanding, more available, more anything, because the issue wasn't you lacking something. It was them lacking the development necessary to appreciate what was right in front of them. They had to learn by living, by making mistakes, by choosing wrong and feeling the full weight of those consequences, by walking away from the real thing and discovering firsthand how empty everything else feels in comparison. By trying to build with people who couldn't give them what you gave them, and feeling the difference in their bones. Right now, this person is living in the aftermath of their own choices. They're dwelling in the landscape their decisions created. And in that aftermath, clarity is flooding in like light through a window that's been closed for years. They're going about their regular routines, working, eating, moving through their days, checking off tasks, showing up to obligations. But there's this undercurrent running beneath everything they do now. A constant awareness that won't leave them alone. A persistent presence in their thoughts. Your name, your face. The memory of who you were to them and what you offered that they didn't have the sense to hold on to. But it's not just nostalgia. It's not just missing you because they're lonely right now, or because whatever else they tried didn't work out the way they hoped. It's not just them looking backward through rose-colored glasses, romanticizing what was actually complicated. This is different. This is recognition. This is them seeing, maybe for the first time, what was actually there all along. They're having these moments where they're with other people, maybe even with someone they thought they wanted, someone they chose over you, someone they convinced themselves was better, and suddenly they're comparing everything to you. The way you listened when they talked, the way you made them feel safe enough to be themselves, the way you saw them, really saw them, even when they were a mess, even when they were struggling, even when they had nothing impressive to offer. They're remembering conversations you had that seemed ordinary at the time, and suddenly those conversations mean something different. You were saying things they couldn't hear then. You were offering wisdom they couldn't receive. You were showing them who you were, and they were too blind to see it. And now those words are playing back in their mind like prophecy, like warnings they should have heeded, like invitations they should have accepted. Why didn't I see this before? That's the question haunting them now. That's the thought that wakes them up in the quiet hours when they can't hide from themselves anymore. And here's what's crucial for you to understand. What I really need to land in your spirit. This isn't about your worth being validated by their recognition. You were always worthy. Your value was never up for debate. Your worth doesn't increase because someone finally sees it. But what is significant, what does matter, is that this person is becoming someone different. Someone who can finally meet you where you've always been. Someone who has developed the capacity to honor what you bring, instead of taking it for granted. The version of them that walked away. That person doesn't exist anymore. Life dismantled them, broke them open, showed them what really matters and what was just ego and fear and immaturity disguised as preference. And in their breaking, they developed capacity, emotional capacity, spiritual capacity, the capacity to hold what you were offering all along, the capacity to value consistency over excitement, the capacity to choose depth over surface-level attraction, the capacity to recognize a soul that sees them and wants to stay even when things get hard. If you're feeling this shift with someone specific right now, if their energy has been different lately, if you sense them waking up to something, just drop a single heart emoji in the comments. No explanation needed. No story required. Just acknowledgement of what you're experiencing. They're carrying regret, yes. But it's not the toxic kind of regret that just beats you down and keeps you stuck in shame. It's the transformative kind. The kind that says, I see now what I couldn't see before, and I'm not the same person who was blind. I'm different now because of what I learned through losing. There's a profound difference between someone coming back because they're bored or desperate or lonely, or just going through a dry season with no other options, and someone coming back because they've genuinely evolved, because they went through a metamorphosis that changed how they see everything, because they can't unsee what they finally saw about you and what you're witnessing, if you pay close attention, if you watch carefully, is evolution. Real evolution. Not just words about change, but actual change. Not just promises to be different, but evidence of difference. Watch how they talk now compared to before. Listen to what they value now. Notice where their attention goes. Notice what they're willing to sacrifice that they weren't willing to sacrifice before. Notice what they're asking for versus what they're offering. This is someone who went to school in the University of Life, and you were the lesson they failed the first time around. But they're retaking the class now. They're doing the work they should have done before, and this time they're showing up completely differently, with humility instead of entitlement, with awareness instead of obliviousness, with gratitude instead of taking things for granted. Let me take you deeper into the specific ways this awakening is manifesting in them, because it's important you understand not just that something is happening, but the actual texture and dimensions of what's happening. The more clearly you see this, the more equipped you'll be to respond with wisdom. Every single person they encounter now gets measured against you. And I don't mean in an obsessive way where they're constantly thinking about you every second. I mean in an automatic way. Their mind just does it, without them even trying. It's become their new baseline. Someone says something kind to them, and their immediate internal response is, but it's not like how they said kind things. It doesn't land the same way. It doesn't feel as genuine. Someone shows up for them in some way, offers some form of support, and they think, but it doesn't feel like how they showed up. This feels obligatory. What they did felt like it came from the soul. Someone tries to love them. Someone puts in effort. Someone does all the right things, and they think, this isn't it. This isn't them. Something's missing, and I can't even articulate what, but I know it's not what I felt with them. They might be in the middle of a perfectly nice moment with someone else, a pleasant dinner, a decent conversation, a fine enough time, and they'll catch themselves feeling fundamentally empty. Why? Because nice isn't the same as right. Pleasant isn't the same as home. Fine isn't the same as soul-deep connection. And you, whether you were together for years or whether it was brief and intense, whether it was official or undefined, you became their reference point for what real connection feels like. You imprinted on them. You showed them what it's like when someone actually sees you, when communication flows naturally, when you don't have to perform or pretend. And now everything else is just less. Everything else feels like trying to fill a U-shaped space with things that don't fit. They're not necessarily romanticizing you or putting you on some unrealistic pedestal where you were perfect and flawless and never difficult. If anything, they're seeing you more clearly now than they ever did before. They're seeing your humanness, your flaws, your complexity, your moments of struggle, and they're realizing that real love isn't about perfection. Real love isn't about finding someone who never challenges you or never has bad days. It's about fit. It's about recognition. It's about meeting someone and feeling like your soul just said, oh, there you are. I've been looking for you. Here's what tells you this awakening is real and not just temporary. They're not blaming you anymore. They're not rewriting history to make themselves the victim of your inadequacy. They're not telling stories to their friends where they're the hero who walked away from someone who just wasn't quite right, or who had too many issues, or who wanted too much in their quiet moments. And they have a lot of quiet moments now, a lot of time alone with their thoughts. They're being honest with themselves. brutally, painfully honest, about how they handled things, about what they took for granted, about the ways they were immature or scared or selfish or just not ready, about how they treated something precious like it was common. They're looking at their own patterns now with clear eyes. The way they run when things start to get real. The way they chase what glitters and sparkles instead of what's actually gold. The way they needed everything to feel easy and exciting when real love is actually about choosing, about commitment, about showing up even on the boring days, even on the hard days. They're seeing how they've done this before, not just with you but in other areas of their life. How they've had a pattern of not valuing things until they're gone. How they've operated from scarcity disguised as freedom, always keeping their options open, always holding back, always protecting themselves from vulnerability by never fully committing to anything. This level of self-awareness, it doesn't come cheap. It doesn't come from reading a few Instagram quotes or listening to a podcast. It comes from hitting walls, from consequences, from the kind of pain that forces you to look in the mirror and admit hard truths about who you've been and how you've moved through the world. And they're in that mirror right now, really looking at themselves, seeing themselves clearly, maybe for the first time. And in that clarity, they're seeing what they lost, who they lost, what they threw away because they didn't yet know how to hold it. They're seeing the specific ways their immaturity cost them something irreplaceable. You might be feeling this even if you haven't spoken to them in weeks or months, even if you've blocked them on everything, even if you've been deliberately creating distance and trying to move on. There's this shift in the atmosphere around this connection, like something that was sealed tight is starting to crack open, like a door that was locked and bolted is being tested from the other side, like something that felt dead is beginning to pulse with life again. Maybe you're seeing signs everywhere. Numbers that were significant to your connection appearing repeatedly. 1111 when you're thinking about them. Their birthday numbers showing up in random places. You glance at your phone, and it's a time that means something in your shared history. These aren't coincidences. These are confirmations, or their name. Their name is everywhere suddenly. You hear it in conversations you're not even part of. You see it on TV shows you're watching. Someone introduces themselves, and they have the same name. It's showing up in articles you read, in songs you hear, in places you can't avoid even when you try. Songs that remind you of them or that were your songs playing everywhere. In the coffee shop, in the store, on a random playlist. Coming through your speakers at the exact moment you were thinking about them. Over and over until you can't dismiss it anymore. Mutual friends suddenly mentioning them out of nowhere after months of silence about them. Hey, whatever happened with, or I ran into them and they asked about you, or just their name dropping into conversations you didn't initiate. The universe orchestrating these connections, these reminders, these little threads that keep you tied together. Strange coincidences that feel like more than coincidence. You think about them and then you see their car on the road. You dream about them, and then something happens the next day that relates to the dream. You feel a pull to go somewhere, and then you find out later they were there around the same time. Or maybe it's not external at all. Maybe you're just feeling them. In that way, you can feel someone even across distance, even across silence. Like their thoughts are reaching toward you. Like their energy is circling back into your field after being gone for so long. You feel them thinking about you. You feel their regret. You feel their realization. You feel them working up courage to reach out, but being terrified of how you'll respond. Don't dismiss this. You're not making it up. You're not being delusional or desperate or creating something out of nothing. When someone starts to truly see you, when they start to recognize what you are to them, when they start to understand what they had and lost, it creates a shift in the energetic fabric between you. The connection that maybe went dormant, that maybe seemed like it had died, starts to pulse again, starts to hum, starts to call attention to itself, not because you're doing anything to make it happen, not because you're focusing on them or trying to manifest them or sending them psychic messages, but because truth has a way of asserting itself. And the truth of what you two are to each other, the truth of what existed between you that was never actually gone. It was just waiting for them to be ready to honor it. For those of you who are spiritual, who believe in prayer or talking to the universe or connecting with God, or however you conceptualize that higher conversation, here's what I'm sensing. This person has started praying about you, or thinking about you in that sacred, vulnerable way that feels like prayer even if they don't call it that or frame it that way. They're asking the universe, asking God, asking their own higher self, asking whatever they believe in. Was that it? Was that the one? Was that the person I was supposed to choose? Did I walk away from what I was actually looking for? Did I let go of the very thing I kept saying I wanted? And in the quiet, when they stop defending themselves and stop making excuses and stop running from the truth, they're getting their answer. Not in audible words, but in feeling, in knowing, in the way peace settles over you when you finally admit a truth you've been avoiding. And the way fear rises up when you contemplate continuing to run from what you know. They might be wrestling with this intensely. Part of them wants to reach out to you, wants to tell you everything they're seeing now, wants to ask if there's any possibility of rebuilding. But another part is absolutely terrified. What if you've moved on? What if you've healed to the point where you don't want them anymore? What if they burned the bridge too completely? What if you can't forgive them for not seeing sooner? What if you're with someone else now who was smart enough to choose you the first time? But stronger than the fear is the knowing, and the knowing keeps pulling them back to this one undeniable reality. You were it. You were the thing they were supposed to choose. You were the person who actually saw them and loved them and showed up for them. And they didn't choose you. They didn't see what they had. And now they have to figure out if there's any way to undo that mistake, any path back to what they walked away from. Type evolution. If you're watching someone become a completely different person than they were before, if you can see them changing in real time, if the shift in them is undeniable, here's where it gets really interesting, where the awakening starts to translate into something concrete. This person has started envisioning their future differently. And you're in it now in ways you weren't before. You're in their mental pictures of what's ahead. Before, when they thought about their life 5 years from now, 10 years from now, when they're old, maybe you weren't in the picture at all. Or you were in the picture, but in some vague, uncommitted way. They could see you there, but also not there. You were an option, but not the option. They were keeping their possibilities open, staying free, not tying themselves down, not ready to choose just one person, just one path, but now they're seeing specific things, concrete things, a home with you, and they can see what it looks like. Mornings with you, coffee together, coming home to each other at the end of long days, a life with you, the routines and rituals and inside jokes and shared history that builds over years. Growing old with you, grey hair and wrinkles, and sitting on a porch somewhere looking back at all you built together. The mundane and the magical all mixed together, and it all includes you. You're not optional in these visions. You're central. They're imagining conversations you haven't had yet. Deep late-night talks. Processing life together. Solving problems as a team. Trips you haven't taken. Places they want to show you. Experiences they want to share with you. They're imagining meeting your family differently this time, with real commitment. They're imagining introducing you to people as theirs, actually theirs, no ambiguity. They're thinking about hard times too, not just the good stuff. They're imagining being there for you when you're struggling, being the person you can count on, proving they're different now. They're thinking about challenges you might face together and how they want to be strong enough, mature enough, present enough to face them with you instead of running. This isn't fantasy. This isn't them daydreaming about some idealized version of what could be. This is them trying on the reality of choosing you and discovering that it fits in a way nothing else has. It feels right in their bones in a way they can't explain with logic, but can't deny. It feels like home, like purpose, like the answer to a question their soul has been asking. And that vision is becoming more solid, more real, more something they actually want to build instead of just think about. It's moving from, wouldn't that be nice, to, I need to make this happen. From passive longing to active intention. The question forming in their heart isn't what if anymore. It's moved beyond hypothetical. Now it's how. How do they get back to you? How do they prove they're different now? How do they show you that this time they can see? This time they're ready? This time they won't waste what you're offering? This time they'll treasure it instead of taking it for granted? Now let's talk about what this really means, not just on the surface level of what's happening with them, but on the deeper level of what this moment represents in the larger story of your life. In the arc of your journey, in the unfolding of your destiny. This is about divine timing, not divine punishment. First, I need you to release any narrative that says you had to wait because you weren't good enough yet. Any story that says the universe was punishing you for something. Any belief that you needed to learn patience or prove yourself worthy or become better before you could have what you wanted. No, the wait wasn't about you needing to be fixed. You were already whole. The wait wasn't about you lacking something essential. You were already complete. The wait wasn't about the universe making you suffer to teach you some cruel lesson. That's not how divine timing works. The wait was about them needing to grow, about them needing to go through what they needed to go through to become who they needed to become, about circumstances needing to align, not just between you two, but in your individual lives, in your separate journeys, in ways neither of you could have forced or rushed, about both of you needing to be in the right place at the right time, not just physically or logistically, but emotionally, spiritually, developmentally. Both of you needed to arrive at this moment having walked your own paths, learned your own lessons, become your own people. There's a rhythm to how things unfold that we don't always understand when we're in the middle of it. We don't see the full picture. We don't know what's being orchestrated behind the scenes. We want everything now. We want people to see us now. We want love to choose us now. We want confirmation and commitment and clarity right now, immediately, without delay. But forced timing creates forced relationships. And forced relationships don't last because they're built on who people wish they were, not who they actually are. They're built on potential instead of reality, on pressure instead of genuine readiness, on fear of loss instead of certainty of choice, the person who couldn't see you before. If you'd somehow convinced them to choose you back then, if you'd been persuasive enough, if you'd performed perfectly enough, if you'd made yourself indispensable enough, you would have spent your entire relationship trying to convince them, constantly trying to prove your worth, constantly anxious that they might leave once they realized you weren't what they thought, constantly aware that you were chosen reluctantly, conditionally, tentatively instead of wholly. You would have been trying to be enough for someone who wasn't developed enough to recognize enough when it was standing right in front of them. Loving them with everything, you would have been building on sand, on shaky foundation, on their unreadiness disguised as willingness. And eventually the whole thing would have collapsed, maybe slowly through erosion, maybe suddenly in a crisis. And it would have hurt so much worse than it hurt when they walked away. Because you would have invested more, sacrificed more, given more, and the failure would have felt more personal, more like proof of your inadequacy instead of proof of their immaturity. But this? What's happening now? If you choose to move forward with this person, this would be built on rock, on solid ground, on their genuine readiness, on their earned wisdom, on their authentic recognition of what you are and what you offer and what it means to have you in their life. This is the difference between someone tolerating you and someone treasuring you, between someone giving you a chance, like they're doing you a favor, and someone knowing they're blessed to have found you, between someone settling for you and someone choosing you on purpose, eyes wide open. This is about your dignity being protected. Look at how you were protected by their absence. Really look at this. Look at what you were spared by not being with them during their season of unreadiness. You weren't there for the version of them that would have taken you for granted. That would have treated your presence as guaranteed while they kept looking around to see if something better might come along. That would have kept one foot out the door, always ready to leave if things got hard or if someone more exciting appeared. You weren't there for the version of them that still needed to learn basic lessons about how to love someone. That still thought love was about feeling without choosing, or chemistry without character, or excitement without stability, or passion without commitment. That still believed love should be effortless, that it should feel like a constant high, that if you have to work at it, then it must not be the one. You weren't there to be their practice relationship, their almost, their not quite. Their maybe someday when I'm ready. Their I love you, but I'm not in love with you. Their you're amazing, but the timing is wrong. Their you're perfect on paper, but something's missing. You weren't there to be the person they learned on, the one they made all their mistakes with, the one they figured out what they wanted by discovering what they didn't want with you, the one they used as a stepping stone to being ready for someone else. Your absence during their unreadiness protected your heart from so much damage, from the slow erosion of your self-worth that comes from loving someone who isn't capable of loving you back properly, from the constant confusion of mixed signals and half-commitments and words that don't match actions, from the pain of being right there, completely available, fully committed and still not chosen, still not enough, still not the one, even though you were doing everything right. You were protected from the experience of watching them give to someone else what they wouldn't give to you, from seeing them suddenly become available for someone new right after telling you they weren't ready for relationship, from the particular agony of realizing it wasn't that they weren't ready, they just weren't ready for you. God, universe, life, whatever you believe in, that force kept you separate during the season when being together would have harmed you, when it would have diminished you, when it would have required you to shrink yourself, to accept less than you deserve, to normalize treatment that should never be normalized. And now, in this season, there's a possibility of coming together in a way that actually honors you, that respects your worth, that meets you as an equal, that chooses you fully instead of conditionally. That's not cruelty, that's protection. That's love from a higher source, making sure you don't settle for less than you deserve just because you're tired of waiting, just because you're lonely, just because you want closure to the story of you and them. If this message is landing in your spirit right now, if you feel deeply seen and understood, if these words are giving language to things you felt but couldn't articulate, the Super Thanks option is a beautiful way to support this ministry. Every bit of support helps me continue creating content that speaks directly to your journey, and I'm truly grateful. This is about you holding your standards, and here's what you need to understand about this moment, what I really need you to hear. Just because they're ready now doesn't mean you automatically have to receive them. Just because they've had an awakening doesn't mean you owe them access to you. Just because they finally see you doesn't mean the door to your life should automatically swing open. Their awakening is beautiful. It really is. Their growth is real. I believe that. I sense that. Their recognition of your value is significant and meaningful. But you still get to choose. You still get agency here. You still get to decide what's actually best for you. You get to ask questions. You get to require evidence of change, not just promises of change. You get to say, show me, don't just tell me. You get to take your time deciding if this is actually what you want, or if maybe, just maybe, you've grown beyond this connection while they were figuring things out. If maybe you've healed into a version of yourself that no longer aligns with them even in their improved state. You get to notice how it feels when they're back in your space. Does it feel like coming home? Does it feel like relief and rightness and finally? Or does it feel like returning to something you've actually outgrown? Does it feel like going backward? Does it stir up old anxiety or old pain? Does it make you feel small again? You get to pay attention to whether they're showing up with humility and accountability or whether they think their realization alone should be enough to erase. Everything that happened before. Are they taking responsibility for how they made you feel? Are they acknowledging the specific ways they hurt you? Or are they just expecting you to celebrate their growth and move forward like the past doesn't matter? You get to protect your peace. You get to move slowly. You get to say, I see that you see me now, and I appreciate that you've grown, and I'm glad you have this clarity, but I need to see if who you've become is actually aligned with who I've become. I need to see if what you're offering now is actually what I need now. I need to take time to discern if this is wisdom or just nostalgia. Because here's the truth that nobody talks about enough. You didn't just sit still while they were gone. You didn't pause your life, waiting for them to get their act together. You grew too. You healed. You learned your own lessons. You did your own work. You became clearer about what you actually need and what you're no longer willing to accept. You developed your own standards and boundaries and non-negotiables. So yes, they might be ready now. That's wonderful for them. But are you ready to let them back in? And I don't mean from a place of scarcity, not from, oh, thank God they finally came back. I've been waiting for this. Let me say yes before they change their mind. I mean from a place of genuine discernment, from a place of, let me actually feel into this and see if it's right for me, for where I am now, for who I'm becoming. That's the question only you can answer. And it's okay if the answer isn't immediate. It's okay if you need time. It's okay if you need to see consistent evidence over weeks or months before you decide. It's okay if you ultimately decide no. All of that is okay. This is about completion, not necessarily reunion. Some of you watching this is going to be your full circle love story. This person coming back is going to be the beginning of your greatest chapter together. This is going to be your, we had to go through the separation to become who we needed to be for each other, testimony. Your, it nearly broke us, but it made us stronger story. Your, they went away and came back different, and now we're building something beautiful, ending. And that's beautiful. That's real. That happens. I've seen it. I believe in it. There are couples who had to separate, who had to grow apart in order, to grow individually, who had to almost lose each other to realize what they had. And they came back together stronger, wiser, more committed, more grateful. And they built something that lasted precisely because they both had to earn it, had to choose it consciously instead of falling into it. But for some of you, this awakening isn't about getting back together. It's about completion. It's about closing the loop. It's about them finally seeing you so that you can release this connection with peace instead of pain. So you can move forward without the haunting question. So you can close this chapter with clarity instead of confusion. Their recognition validates what you always knew, that the connection was real, that you weren't crazy, that there was something there worth choosing. And that validation releases you from the question that's been haunting you. Was it me? Was I not enough? Did I do something wrong? Am I unlovable? No, it was never you. And now you have confirmation. Now you have proof. They can see you now. They can articulate your value now. They can recognize what they had now. Which means it wasn't about you lacking something. It was about them lacking the development to see what was there. And that confirmation allows you to fully let go and step into what's actually meant for you. Maybe that's someone new who was ready from the beginning. Maybe that's a season of beautiful solitude. Maybe that's a completely different kind of life than you imagined. But you can step into it without carrying the wound of, I wasn't enough, because now you know you were always enough. Don't force this to be a reunion if it's actually meant to be a release. Don't write a story that isn't yours to write just because you're attached to a particular ending. Be open to both possibilities. Let what's meant to unfold, unfold. Trust that the truth will reveal itself if you're patient and present and honest with yourself about what you're actually feeling. If you're finally understanding that their inability to see you was never about your value. If you're releasing the story that you weren't enough, type worthy below. Let's fill this comment section with that truth. This is about you trusting your knowing you knew. even when they were telling you that you weren't what they wanted, even when they were choosing other people, even when they were pulling away or staying distant or keeping things surface level, even when everything looked like rejection, somewhere deep inside. You knew there was something real between you. You knew the connection wasn't ordinary. You knew the chemistry wasn't one-sided. You knew what you felt when you were together, and you knew they felt it too, even if they couldn't admit it. You knew that what you experienced together wasn't something common or easily replaceable, and people probably told you that you were delusional, that you were seeing what you wanted to see, that you were projecting, that you were clinging to breadcrumbs and calling it a meal, that you needed to wake up and see reality, that they showed you who they were and you should believe them, and maybe you started to doubt yourself. Maybe you started to think maybe everyone else was right, and you were just desperate or naive or unable to accept rejection. Maybe you started to question your own perception of reality, but you were right. You weren't delusional. You weren't making it up. You weren't projecting or fantasizing or clinging to nothing. There was something real. They just weren't ready to honor it yet. They couldn't handle it yet. They couldn't rise to meet it yet. And now that they're waking up to it, now that they're seeing what you saw all along, you get to trust yourself even more deeply. You get to know with absolute certainty that your intuition is accurate, that when you sense something true, it is true, even if the other person can't see it yet, even if circumstances don't reflect it yet, even if it takes time for reality to catch up to what you know in your soul. That's a powerful gift to carry forward. Whether you end up with this person or with someone else entirely, you now know your inner knowing is trustworthy. When you feel that soul-level recognition with someone, that's real information. That's not something to doubt or dismiss or second-guess into oblivion. You can feel when someone sees you. You can feel when connection is genuine. You can feel when there's potential for something deep. And just because the other person isn't ready to act on it doesn't mean you were wrong to sense it. Trust what you know. Trust what you feel. Trust what your soul recognizes as true. And also trust when that knowing says, this isn't right anymore, or this isn't mine to hold on to, or this was real, but it's not my future. Trust all of it. So how do you navigate this season with wisdom? How do you honor both their awakening and your own growth? How do you move through this moment in a way you'll be proud of later, regardless of how it turns out? Let me give you some guidance that you can actually use. Stay grounded in your own reality. Don't get swept up in the romance of them finally seeing you. Don't let their realization become the most important thing happening in your life right now. Yes, it feels validating. Yes, it's meaningful. Yes, it confirms things you always knew. But your reality, your actual day-to-day life, your peace, your joy, your growth, matters more than their realization. How do you actually feel right now, independent of them? Not about them seeing you, about your own life. Are you at peace? Are you happy? Have you built something beautiful in their absence? Have you created routines and friendships and purposes that fulfill you? Do you like who you've become? Don't abandon your own life because they've decided to show back up. Don't put everything on hold. Don't cancel plans or push aside priorities or rearrange your whole world to make space for them to re-enter. Don't start orbiting around their attention again like they're the sun, and you're a planet that only has light when they shine it on you. Stay centered in yourself. Stay rooted in your own worth. Stay committed to your own path. Let them enter your life, if you decide that's what you want, as someone who adds to what's already good, not as someone who finally makes things good. Not as the missing piece that makes you whole, but as a complement to your already existing wholeness. You're not waiting for rescue. You're not waiting for validation. You're not waiting for someone to finally choose you so you can feel valuable. You're living your life. You're thriving, or at least surviving, or at minimum putting one foot in front of the other. And if they want to be part of that life, they need to understand the structure. You're the sun, not the planet. You're the center of your own universe. And they don't get to walk back in and take that position just because they finally woke up. Watch their actions, not just their words. Anyone can have an awakening. Anyone can have a moment of clarity. Anyone can realize they made a mistake. Anyone can say, I see you now. I'm sorry. I was wrong. I didn't know what I had. Can we try again? Words are easy. Words are cheap. Words come from the mouth, and sometimes they come from genuine feeling. But sometimes they just come from loneliness or nostalgia or the discomfort of realizing you hurt someone. But transformed people don't just talk differently. They move differently. They behave differently. They show up differently. Their lives look different. Their priorities are different. Their choices reflect their claimed values. Watch how they show up. Are they consistent? Do they do what they say they're going to do? Do they follow through? Are they patient with your need for time and space and caution? Are they humble? Are they willing to earn your trust instead of assuming they should have it automatically because they finally get it? Are they respecting your boundaries? Are they listening when you express needs or concerns? Are they taking responsibility for their past behavior without making excuses? Are they showing genuine remorse, not just regret that things didn't work out the way they wanted? Are they doing the actual work to become someone capable of the relationship they say they want? Are they in therapy? Are they addressing their patterns? Are they making different choices in all areas of their life? Or do they just want to be different with you while everything else stays the same? Or are they just in love with the idea of you? In love with the validation of winning you back? In love with the feeling of being seen and understood by you, without actually being prepared to give that back to you consistently? Real change has evidence. Real readiness has proof. Real transformation shows up in behavior, not just in emotional declarations. You don't have to be suspicious or cynical or constantly testing them, but you do get to be discerning. You do get to watch and notice and pay attention. Give them the space to show you who they've become. But watch, really watch, and trust what you see more than what you hear. Trust patterns more than promises. Trust consistency more than intensity. Honor your healing journey. You've done significant work while they were gone. You've healed wounds, not just wounds they caused, but old wounds they touched. You've grown in ways that were painful and beautiful. You've learned to be okay without them. You've discovered that you can survive their absence. You've built a life that doesn't revolve around them. Don't dishonor that journey by rushing back into something just because they're ready now. Don't treat your healing like it was just a placeholder activity until they came back. Don't act like none of it mattered, because what you really wanted all along was them. Your healing matters. Your growth matters. The person you've become matters. The strength you've developed matters. The clarity you've gained matters. The boundaries you've learned to set matter. The self-respect you've cultivated matters. If you're going to let them back in, if you decide that's what you want after careful consideration, it needs to be at a pace that honors how far you've come. It needs to be in a way that doesn't require you to shrink back into who you were before. The version of you who was still hoping and waiting and wondering if they'd ever see you. The version who would have accepted less because you didn't yet know you deserved more. You're not that person anymore. You're someone who knows their worth now. Someone who has options. Someone who doesn't need them. Who only wants them if it's genuinely right, if it genuinely adds to your life, if it genuinely honors who you've both become. Enter from that place. From wholeness, not from lack. From abundance, not from scarcity. From choice, not from desperation. From power, not from fear of missing out. Communicate your truth. Clearly, if and when you engage with this person, be ruthlessly clear about where you are. Don't perform or pretend or manage their feelings at the expense of your own truth. Don't pretend you're more open than you are, just to keep them around or avoid conflict. Don't downplay your hurt or confusion or hesitation just to make things easier for them. Don't act like everything is fine when you're actually still processing. Don't perform readiness if you're not actually ready. Say things like, I see that you're in a different place now, and I genuinely appreciate that growth. But I need time to understand what this means for me, for my life, for my future. I'm glad you have more clarity about what happened between us. I've also gained clarity while you were gone, And part of that clarity is knowing I need to move slowly and carefully. I need to honor that. I'm not closing the door on this, but I'm also not rushing through it just because you're ready now. If this is real and meant to be, it can unfold at a pace that respects both of us and doesn't require me to ignore my own process. I appreciate your honesty about what you're seeing and feeling. I need you to appreciate that I have my own process here. I'm not waiting for you in the way I might have before. I'm living my life. And I need to discern whether inviting you back into it is actually what's best for me. Your honesty is the foundation of anything real that could potentially be built here. Don't sacrifice your truth for the illusion of connection. Don't say what you think they want to hear. Don't manage the outcome by controlling your words. Just be honest. Create space for clarity. Don't make major decisions in the intensity of the moment. Don't decide everything right now. Don't let the emotion of this reunion or reconnection or conversation override your wisdom. This is a time for presence, not pressure. For exploration, not commitment. For seeing what's real versus what's nostalgic or hopeful or scared or lonely. Spend time with them if you want to, if it feels right, if you're curious. But also spend time away from them. Notice how you feel in their presence, relaxed or anxious, safe or on edge, like yourself or like you're performing. And notice how you feel in their absence, relieved or sad, peaceful or restless, clear or confused. Notice what comes up. What old patterns try to resurface? What new dynamics emerge? What feels different from before and what feels exactly the same? What feels true in your body versus what feels true only in your hopeful mind? You don't owe them a quick answer. You don't owe them certainty before you have it yourself. You don't owe them anything except basic human decency and honesty about your process. Take the space you need. Days, weeks, months, whatever it takes. Let clarity emerge naturally instead of forcing it. Let the truth reveal itself in layers. Let your body and your intuition catch up to what your mind is processing. Who needed to hear that you don't have to rush your decision just because they're finally ready? Drop a word of encouragement below for someone who needs permission to take their time. Remember your non-negotiables. You know what you need now. You've learned through painful experience. You know what a healthy relationship looks like and what you're no longer willing to accept or tolerate or normalize. You know what you need in terms of communication, in terms of emotional availability, in terms of consistency and commitment and follow-through, in terms of how you want to be treated, spoken to, prioritized, in terms of what respect looks like, what love looks like, what partnership looks like. Don't compromise those standards because someone finally woke up. Don't lower your bar because you're tired or because you don't want to start over with someone new or because you're attached to this particular person being the one. Your standards exist to protect you. They exist because you learned what happens when you don't have them or when you ignore them. They're valid regardless of who's standing in front of you. If you need consistency, require consistency. If you need commitment, require commitment. If you need someone who shows up emotionally and not just physically, require that. If you need someone who can communicate during conflict instead of shutting down or leaving, require that. And if they're genuinely ready, they will meet those standards. They'll understand that earning your trust is part of the journey. They'll respect your boundaries without making you feel like you're asking for too much. They'll prove themselves without you having to beg for proof. But if they're resistant to your standards, if they think their realization alone should be enough, if they want you to meet them halfway when they're the one who left and they're the one coming back, if they're asking you to give them another chance without being willing to do the work to actually be different, that tells you something important. That tells you their awakening might be real, but it's not complete. That tells you they see you, but they still don't fully understand what it means to honor what they see. Stay open to the unexpected. Here is what I've learned about these situations over years of walking with people through them. They rarely unfold exactly how we think they will. Life is so much more creative than our limited imaginations. Maybe this person comes back and it's everything you hoped for. Maybe they show up differently, consistently, beautifully, and you build something together that's even better than what you imagined before. Maybe this is your happy ending, your full circle story, your testimony. Maybe they come back and you realize you've actually outgrown them. Maybe you discover that who you've become doesn't actually fit with who they are, even in their improved state. Maybe you see clearly that you romanticized this connection and the reality doesn't match the fantasy. Maybe they come back briefly just to give you closure, just to apologize, just to see you one more time, just to release the connection with honesty and respect instead of ghosting or ambiguity. And maybe that closure is exactly what you needed to fully move forward. Maybe they don't come back at all in a physical sense, but the shift in their energy, the sense that they finally see you, gives you what you actually needed. Not them, but validation. Not reunion, but confirmation that you weren't crazy, weren't wrong, weren't delusional. Maybe someone completely different shows up during this season. Someone who is always ready. Someone who sees you clearly from day one, without needing to go through a whole journey to get there. Someone who doesn't need to be convinced of your value because they recognized it immediately. Someone who makes you realize that you were settling before, even in your hoping and wanting and loving that person who couldn't see you. Stay open. Don't get so fixated on this one person, this one storyline, this one possible ending that you miss what else is trying to happen in your life. Don't let your attachment to a specific outcome blind you to other possibilities. This moment is significant. This awakening matters. This shift is real. But it's not the only thing that's significant in your life right now. Your life is bigger than any one connection, any one awakening, any one person finally seeing what they should have seen before. Stay present. Stay open. Stay honest with yourself about what you're actually experiencing versus what you're hoping to experience. And trust that whatever is meant for you will find you. Whatever is yours won't pass you by. Whatever is real will prove itself without you having to force it. So here we are, beloved. This person wasn't ready before. That's the simple truth of what happened. They weren't ready. Not ready to see you clearly. Not ready to value what you brought. Not ready to choose you fully. Not ready to honor the gift of your presence in their life. But now something fundamental has shifted in them. Now something has cracked open. Now light is getting in where there was only darkness before. They've been through the fire of their own choices. They've walked through the consequences of walking away from you. They've felt the specific emptiness of everything that wasn't you. They've tried to fill your space with other people, other things, other distractions, and discovered that your space is uniquely shaped and nothing else fits. They've learned what they couldn't learn any other way, that some connections are rare, that some people are irreplaceable, that some things once lost cannot be found again elsewhere, and in their learning, they've developed the capacity to finally recognize what was always there: you, your value, your rarity, your beauty, your depth, your consistency, your love, the specific magic of what you bring to someone's life when they're actually ready to receive it and treasure it and protect it. This is their awakening. They're coming to. Their "oh my God, what did I walk away from?" moment that's unfolding not just in a single instance, but as a sustained realization that keeps deepening the more they sit with it. The more they try to escape it, the more they try to explain it away. But here's what I want you to carry with you as we close. What I need to settle deep in your spirit. Their awakening doesn't define your worth. It simply confirms what was always true. You were always